All right. So it's a privilege to be here, even though the last panel, I hope you have the energy and not sugar coma, as some of the delicious desserts that were in front of us. Let me kick off. As an entrepreneur, one of the things that really is striking about this journey is you get to come up with ideas and actualize them, but your journey is unique, so you don't have a lot of partners. So it's such a pleasure to be on this panel with these amazing ladies. So let me kick it off by having you introduce yourself, maybe in 1 minute, and tell me your most favorite thing about being an entrepreneur. Yes, Lata, start.
Good afternoon, everybody. Lata Ravi here. Great pleasure to be here. Thank you for being here. So I'm the president of Flylock Security Solutions, and my experience has been an entrepreneur previously before starting this entrepreneurial journey, designing products and leading technology organizations to bring new products and solutions to market. And now I've been the president. We are coming up on 9 years, I cannot believe, almost a decade of being an entrepreneur. And I also practice and teach yoga, which keeps me sane most days. And I also offer technology advisory services to companies that are looking to invest in technologies. I love saving lives, and that's why we do this. We wake up every day with my teams so we can do security by design. We stay local. I used to be a very global executive. Now I'm extremely local. I stay in Atlanta and south of Atlanta, visit my clients in person, and develop relationships. So I went from being totally global to totally local, but I bring the best in global security to all the local clients. And we work with schools, manufacturing, and different buildings. What do I like about it, you said? What is the most rewarding?
Well, quickly, what's your most favorite part of being an entrepreneur?
It goes to my mission, personally, to save lives. So every day, the measure is how many lives have we saved by either interacting with them, educating them, and I absolutely love that because the impact is so great for my exit strategy from the earth that I can't really measure it in terms of ROI, revenue, profit, or anything else. So to me, I find that extremely, extremely rewarding.
Thank you. Sanji?
Thank you, Sucheta. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Georgia Chamber for having us. This event has been incredible, and it is a true honor to be on stage with my fellow panelists. I'm Sanji Jacobs. I am the managing partner of Incisive. We are a communications, marketing, brand, and public affairs agency. We are based here in Metro Atlanta, but we serve international, national, regional, and local clients. And we really love what we do. We are strategists who execute in communications and marketing. And I got to this point after, I'm gonna date myself, a 30-year career in every aspect of communications. So I started in advertising, ended up inside the newsroom as a journalist for 2 different organizations, came to Atlanta to write for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. From there, landed at Edelman, did crisis communications. From there, led communications for the city of Atlanta. And then I went corporate for 10 years before, in January of 2024, deciding to join forces with my business partner, Chris Sizemore, to run Incisive. And Chris is here, shout out for being one of the males in the room. And I have to say that after that career, my favorite part of being an entrepreneur, which is not something I ever dreamed of doing or thought that I would do, is actually being my own boss. So I tell everybody that I'm my favorite boss ever. I do listen to Chris, and I do think maybe the second thing that I really like is building something that I care about so deeply with someone else who's also committed to communications and marketing. So that's been the journey.
Thank you. How about you, Emmy?
All right. Hey, y'all. I'm Emmy Howard, and I'm the president of Onward Reserve, based here in Atlanta. I did want to just give a really big shout out first to the Georgia Chamber, because there are some women who lead, and they lead the Georgia Chamber, and I just wanted to say thank you for hosting this wonderful day. Thank you all so much. And thank you. I'm so honored to be with this panel and with Sucheta, and it is just really a delight to be an entrepreneur, and they save the best for last. So what do I do? I help men dress better. That has been my mission for 20 years. 20 years ago, I founded a company called Southern Proper, and I built, led, and sold it, and it was a men's haberdashery. It was the first of its kind with kind of this subculture of Southern fashion, and I was a woman designing for men, running a men's business, which was really an incredible experience. And then after I built, led, and sold that, I had a friend who had started a business that I'd kind of helped him along as he was growing his business called Onward Reserve. And he came to me and said, now, I know you're retired, but would you come and help us at Onward Reserve? And so since then, in 2019, just before the pandemic, I helped Onward Reserve grow. We've built an incredible team of over 250 people. We have 14 stores in 7 states, and we're going to add 2 or 3 more this year, which is really exciting. And when we're just a men's and gift and accessories company, and we really put a lot of heart and soul into our stores, in our retail experience, and to our customer experience. Also, my favorite thing about entrepreneurship is that it is a wild and fun ride. I think that every day is different. We certainly bob and weave, and we are very agile, and that's what makes it so fun. We can turn on a dime, and I think that's one of the best parts about the position, because I did have a little stint out of college working for Newell Rubbermaid, a big corporation that I was recruited to work for, and I learned what I didn't like about corporate America, so I said, you know what, entrepreneurship is for me, so that's it.
Beautiful. So as you can see, it takes courage, and I love saving lives, being your own boss, and then of course, no dull moment. Every day is full of surprise. So as I think about entrepreneurship myself, one thing that strikes me that you get to solve problems. You see the landscape and say, hey, something is missing. Maybe I can design something that will solve the problem. Another thing that is foundation that has helped me build my entrepreneurial thought is cross-pollination. So coming from many sectors of interest, talent, and training can really build an entrepreneurial thought. So my question to you, each of you, is what inspired you to take this path towards solving a problem? And then I would say, what risks scared you the most? Because, of course, it's an uncharted territory, right? You want to start, Lakshmi? Lata?
All right, so what inspired me? So since I was 15 years old, I still think I'm 24, so different problem there. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I had no idea how to be one or what idea to pick because I had hundreds of ideas. And I wanted to work with my husband. Shout out to my husband, Ravi Somasundaram. He's right in the audience. Ravi, you want to raise your hand? One of the brave men who's here in our group of women here. And I wanted to do that. And we were looking for different ideas. We had separate careers. We were both executives in technology, had extremely lucrative careers, and very well compensated and enjoying ourselves. And I was designing as a chief technology officer products with my teams in the security industry to be able to apprehend criminals who break into banks or pharmacies where, due to oxycodone, the pharmacists were getting killed. And the products that we designed, we could see live crime and watch live crime 24/7 around the world. And mostly when a criminal was caught in 15 minutes, in the vehicle, there was a child or a mother or somebody who had been trafficked or caught from the parking lot that nobody knew was missing. They would have become a statistic if they had not been found. So I had an aha moment at the time that we can save lives proactively by design if we can work directly with clients and help them prepare and plan, because somebody, a bank, prepared and planned with us, they deployed that solution that helped when they needed it. So when my husband and I were looking for different business ideas to work together, his thought was, we're happily married, why would we want to work together? Let's not rock the boat here, right? And, but he was very supportive of me. He's one of my biggest cheerleaders my entire career. And we looked at different concepts, and we said, let's go be of service in the community day in and day out, bring our technical expertise directly to clients, proactively design the solutions with them, So they have a better chance of saving lives, and they can focus on their business while we focus on their security, right? So if they can focus on growing their business, it's going to be great. So this is how the whole story started, on why we started this business together. I really wanted to work with him, and I'm so happy. That's one of the other best things about this job, is that I get to work with him, live with him, sleep with him. Too much information there, but that is also a fantastic thing over there. So the risks that we had highlighted, many risks, okay? But the two risks that totally are big risks for us were personal, not really anything else. Now, in retrospect, I should have had a lot more business risks. One is health. If my health or his health gets impacted, what happens to our business, employees, right? And so we planned it in such a way that there would be risk mitigation, and clients and employees would be taken care of. And we would be each other's backups, so we would train each other. It still stays as a number one risk for us to take care of our health. And the number two is our marriage. So this was very important for us. We fell in love very young, and we've been together a long time. And we said that if the marriage is impacted, then one of us will exit, or we will do our best to try to mitigate what is happening over there, or even walk away from the business. Right? So that was so important for us. So when you asked me that question, it was all so personal. It was really, that was what we were scared about, and I was scared about. And we worked very hard with that. And I attended an SBA Thrive class, where it's a phenomenal organization, SBA. I'll talk about it a little bit more, the Small Business Administration in the state of Georgia. And they said, ladies, if you ever think of starting a business, do not start it with your husband. Do not be a husband and wife business. It's the hardest thing to do on earth. And I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I did a very difficult, hard thing. And they said, if either the husband or the wife can fire each other, then you are a true partnership. So running a family-owned business has its own dynamics. You have to be careful, draw your boundaries. I learned all of that. So if you are thinking of starting a business and doing it with a family member, I ask you to look at that risk and see how you're going to mitigate it.
I really love, Lata, your wholesome thought about entrepreneurship. Even though it's business of running life. And being a partner on this journey together with your husband, you're very fortunate to have those principles guiding you, because I have a lot of friends whose marriages have fallen apart, and they had to make a choice because they didn't do the mitigation or plan ahead. So I really appreciate your thoughtfulness. How about you, Sanjay? Sanjay, we had a chance to chat about this. So I'm very interested to know how you have seen risks in this business.
Thank you. We did. You know, I mentioned it in my opening. I never thought about being an entrepreneur, and if I'm really honest, throughout the day we've heard a lot of the panelists talk about imposter syndrome, and as I was sitting here thinking and listening to them, I thought, well, I'm usually the person who's the most direct person in the room, or I've been labeled as aggressive. I don't really know if imposter syndrome is the thing that I struggle with. But as I was sitting here thinking about my entrepreneurial journey, in fact, I think that it did show up for me. I think part of the reason why I never thought about being an entrepreneur is because I didn't think that I could do it. You know, my niece and other family members, as they watched me go through my career at different times, and particularly when I got to corporate, I learned a lot. It was an incredible experience, but I started to wonder, what do I want to do next? Do I still have the same passion for this? And people suggested to me, they said, why don't you run your own business? You can do this. And I didn't think I could do it. And one of the big reasons that I thought I couldn't do it was because, like Bentina Terry earlier, she was an English major who ended up at an engineering company. I was a history and literature major. I was not phenomenal at math. And so that stayed with me throughout my entire career. And when I went corporate, I worked with the CEO directly. I started to learn a lot about finances, but I still didn't feel very confident. As I started to join different boards and sat in finance executive committee meetings, I started to learn how to analyze a balance sheet and an income statement, but I still didn't have the same confidence in that space that I had in other places in my life. So one decision that I made without even thinking that this was going to set me on an entrepreneurial journey was to go and get an MBA. And so doing that, and I would encourage, whether you actually commit to an MBA or you take a class or just being curious, as Bentina said earlier, and continually seeking to learn, I think helped put me on that path. Once I went through the program, and then I happened to meet the person who would end up becoming my business partner, and things changed in corporate, it suddenly seemed like it all came together. But when I look back on it, it wasn't sudden. There were clear steps that I was taking. The lesson out of all of that is if I can actually be an entrepreneur and I'm actually in charge of the finances, Chris and I just separated this out, that means that anybody can do it. In terms of risk, the risk for me was more around also, it really resonated to me what you said about healthcare and what happens if one partner gets ill. I'm a divorced mom, and so I'm solely responsible for my daughter. She's now a senior in college. That was something that weighed really heavily on me. So I'll be honest, courage is another word that we heard earlier today. It took me a number of years to have the courage and to be at a point in my life where I felt comfortable to take the entrepreneurial risk. I'm not sure if I would have been able to do it earlier. So courage is something, it's a muscle that we can grow and flex over time. And so I think that that's a really inspiring thought.
Well, my entrepreneurial journey started because of my love of two things, Southern men and fashion, and in that order. I'd always grown up with a granddad, a dad, a brother that it was wearing their Sunday best, seersucker suits, bow ties. It just really inspired me, and I just always knew that there was something more to kind of this subculture of Southern fashion. So that's really what really jump-started me into saying, you know what, I think there's something that I can do to help men dress better. And I think just in general, when you dress better, you feel better, or you do better. And so I think that was a big tipping point for me. And then as I've progressed along the journey, obviously it's been really about building a team, building a brand, not just a business, but building a brand. I mean, that is so important, and that's something that, you know, I think we're all doing in our own different ways. I think the biggest risk, I think back to a story when I had to walk in to my corporate job, to my VP of marketing boss's office, and tell her that I was leaving, give my notice, and tell her why, that I was starting my own business. I wasn't going to a competitor, but I was going, and I thought, man, she's going to be pumped for me. And we've talked a lot about like men in business and women as women leading and the challenges with that. But this was a boss that I looked up to. She was a big VP in our big, you know, $8 billion company, and I thought, man, she's going to be so excited. And she wasn't. She said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're going to fail. Man, that's tough to hear. And you know what? I knew it was risky. Failure was probably one of the things that, you know, I think we all just hold on to. We don't want to fail. We don't want to start something that doesn't succeed. And I think what she did, though, that day is she just gave me the biggest boost that I needed to make sure that I did it, to make sure that I started that business, grew it, built it, and I've never looked back, so.
Well, you know, I am a speech language pathologist and an executive function specialist and a therapist. So one thing, as I'm listening to their answers, what strikes very deeply to me is this sense of resilience. When you talk about, I'm sure all of you have creative thoughts in your head. You have ideas that you are wondering, should I launch? But this is the inspiration. I think all of us must be, you have a choice to be risk-aversive or pro-risk taker. So I appreciate you setting the stage for that. And I think without risk, you wouldn't know if the idea is going to propel itself or I'm going to be in charge of propelling it. So my next question, let me start with you, Emmy, is what was your biggest growth inflection point in this journey?
Yeah, I think back to my first entrepreneurial venture with Southern Proper. We kind of were a blowfish. I use this analogy of a blowfish, you know, the defense mechanism of a blowfish is to get bigger and look bigger than you really are. And to a lot of people, my little company looked a lot bigger than it was, thanks to we were kind of in the age of social media, really boosting companies and building it up. I think that part of, the blowfish effect was just that, we really had kind of been first to market, which was huge and helped us. Things like the Georgia Chamber, I got involved early on with them as a new business in Georgia, and they really helped boost me up and, helped put me on different boards. And so, it was like I was getting a lot of this attention for our brand and what we were building. But I think the biggest growth challenge and something that really propelled our brand, but also was a learning curve and helped me in my next venture with Onward Reserve, was that at one point, we were growing, about $1 million, doubling sales each and every year, which was really awesome growth for a small business of, 3 or 4 people. But then Belk, Dillard's, and Von Maur came knocking at my door all at one time. And what did I do as this young entrepreneur? I said, yeah, we'll sell you all. We'll just sell to everybody. And what I didn't realize at that point, even though it took our sales from here to here, what I didn't realize was that, gosh, what a challenge and what a strain on our resources, what a strain on our systems and fulfillment. And I had to learn EDI, and it was just quite a little bit of a mess. So we worked out the kinks and got through that, and it ended up being obviously a blessing in disguise and really helped propel and build the business. But I think it was a good learning of growth and what to do and what not to do. And now with Onward Reserve, we've been more focused on controlling our own destiny, maybe not selling to all of those big box stores, but to buy our own real estate, to build our own distribution channels. So those are the things that I learned and that I've helped bring to this new role with Onward and helping build that brand. So.
Great. What you, Sanji?
Yeah, I have a slightly similar story, but first of all, can we just say Emmy, #business goals. Wow, amazing. Taking total notes. When Chris and I formed the partnership, he gave a piece of advice. He had already run a business for 20 years, and I think that in year one, it really kind of helped set the stage in terms of our growth trajectory. And what he said was that we don't always have to agree, and we often won't agree, but we need to align. And the difference is we actually just kind of had an experience with this yesterday. He gave some counsel to a client. I probably would have counseled them a little differently, but I didn't disagree or I wasn't opposed to the direction that he was moving in. So we had alignment, just recognizing that, our paths and the way that we would counsel the client would be a little different. But kind of figuring out that synergy in year one was not as easy as I made it just seem in 30 seconds, right? So that took a lot of work in terms of figuring out our work styles. I think you kind of touched on that in terms of working with a husband. It's not always easy getting 2 people, or sometimes I think it's harder to get 2 people in a room to agree than maybe 100. So that we did a lot of work on that in year one, and in addition, on a much smaller scale, we faced a little bit of the same challenge that you did. When we launched the business, we kind of made a big splash. We had like a party. We put our whole marketing budget in year one into like one event, and happily it paid off. But within about 6 months, we had close to 24 clients. And really, it was, me, Chris, and a handful of contractors. And by June or July of year one, I'm new to this, I'm transitioning from corporate, I probably have some nervousness, all of that. I felt really, really, really overwhelmed. And I think we had to take a deep breath and do a reset and sort of figure out, okay, we want to grow, we want to scale, but how do we do that in a way that is, good for the business and also good for ourselves? So we did a lot of that in year two, sort of kind of right-sizing our systems, how we approach new business. and how we build our team. And I will tell you, in 2026, year 3, we're off to the races. Actually, just this morning before I got over here, I probably shouldn't say this, but Bentina said it, so I will too. Set stage of life. So I was awake at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was sitting there writing out a talent management plan. So we have a great team that we've worked with. Now we're really starting to think about how our people can grow with us and stay with us. What are their opportunities in the business, and how we as founders and partners start to come out of direct client delivery all the time and really start seeding that to the talented people that we're working with. So I've done that in corporate. It feels really different thinking about not being in every meeting as, the co-partner of this business, because it feels so much more personal, right? It's our brand, it's our face, it's our names out there. But we, in year 3, are starting to make that transition, and it feels really, really good.
Wow, this reminds me of like you're running a marathon and all the miles, 26 miles, and as you get closer to finish, you start feeling relief, but marathon doesn't end. But I can see what you're saying. When you have done the investing such upfront effort, time, and incredible focused direction, it can begin to pay off. How was that for you?
So every small business, every startup, people before products, people before profits has always been my mantra in my entire career and life. And if you are a startup or a small business, you need customers and you need employees. So our big inflection point was when we had a local customer, we gave an unsolicited proposal to them. I had watched their school, their facility, I had stopped by there, I identified many risks, and I was very concerned. So therefore, we submitted an unsolicited proposal to them, identifying all the security gaps, where the vulnerability were, how they could protect their 200 children, and what can be done, improved, all from the outside. Because I couldn't step into their facility. They did have great security. But I went and stopped by periodically with the person at the front desk and said, can you please, give this to the principal? She said, we're not looking, we have security providers, we're perfectly happy, thank you very much. She took my card and was all good. 6 months later, I did this for a few weeks and then I kind of gave up. 6 months later, I get one liner that says, we're ready to have you start the project. Please come in Monday to start the project. And I'm going, what project? What are we talking about here? And that client has been a very, very great client because our project was a very large project. And they loved what we gave them. They said, you were so persistent. They said, you identified everything that we thought was a gap. And you actually had solutions. And we put a phase plan. We did step by step. We gave high-level budget. And we said, first year, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. As you grow, as you add your children to the school, as you add buildings, here's what you could do. But that very first project meant a lot to us. So my ask to all of you here is that find somebody on the chamber membership, find somebody local, give them a chance. 5% of your business, if you give to them, it may mean a big deal to that company. This meant a big deal to us. It was an inflection point. We were just running after that. It built our confidence. They loved us. They kept trusting us after that. They are like our ideal client. And I pray that we have been building more ideal clients over a period of time, and the relationship is growing really well. They're focusing on their children and educating the children while we are focusing on their security, which, as all of you know, daily the security for schools is a very challenging space. So I would say the inflection point really was to get that large project, and we executed it very well. And kudos, Ravi's there. He's still in charge of that account over there. For our client, you have to execute. Once you get it, you still have to execute, right? If you don't execute, what's the point in stopping by there so many times? So I would say my ask to each and every one of you here, when by the end of the day, meet up with 5 people, see and understand what their business is, see if you can help them somehow so they gain one more customer. And if we did that as women with each other, you would have created, by the time we leave this room, inflection points for every single person in this room. That's my ask to you.
Lovely. Your story, Lata, reminds me of a story. I personally experienced this inflection point 3 years earlier. This was last year. So I had given a talk to Georgia school board members and superintendents in front of 400 audience. You don't get to know your audience. And then 3 years later, which was a year ago, a superintendent came to me and said, reach out to me. We are ready to launch your personalized digital platform in our school. I did not know his name. I did not get any introduction. He thought I knew him. I didn't know how he knows me. I don't know how he knows the product. So anyways, so I ran back to my team and I said, does anybody on the team know this superintendent? And finally, through the grapevines, found out. But apparently, that talk I gave, for 3 years he had been thinking about and had been planning, just didn't have the right moment to launch it. So I just love this story that you're saying that sometimes all your entrepreneurial journey is like sowing seeds, and you keep watering and pray for sunlight, and then eventually it will begin to sprout, and then you will have a massive garden to tend to. That's a good problem to have. Well, no massive garden can propel itself without some funding. So let me ask you the next question. Access to capital remains a challenge, and I'm not sure it's a challenge for all entrepreneurs or women entrepreneurs more, but with that framing, I'm curious what strategies have helped you secure funding and make scaling possible? Maybe I will start with you, and how would you like to answer that? Go ahead, Lata.
Money, 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 money. We need money. We want more money. We want to do bold things. We have big visions. Okay, so I'm extremely thankful and grateful to the Small Business Administration, the SBA. We went for an SBA loan. But my story is that I actually had no idea how to get funding. We were squirreling away every penny possible, saving, saving, saving. We had no idea which idea we were going to pick, how much money we needed, right? But we just were stewards of saving money so that we knew someday we're going to start a business, we're going to do something great, and we need money. Then I went to all the local chambers asking what are the needs of the community on the south side, right? What can I do? What can we do to impact great change? Got input, got feedback. I'm grateful to the Fayette Chamber president who asked me to go see the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, and I said, what's that? She said, before you start a single business, you better go talk to them. Because every person I was talking to for funding was telling me, convert your 401k and start your business overnight, I will give you the funding. Thanks to my husband and my business partner, he said, no, you're not touching it. Go figure out how you're going to get funding. I will support you to start the business, but not this. So I went to the SBDC, and they reviewed all our financials and paperwork, and they said, of course you'll qualify for an SBA loan. They gave me all the information about SBA 7A loans and all the different loans, and I'm like, wow, what is this? And I filled out all the paperwork, and it took some time, but 2 banks offered funding and capital to start the business. Okay, of course, we had to select one, but all the questions these banks asked, right on the money over the 9 years, every single risk they pointed out has happened. So my advice to you, if you're looking for funding, first, of course, have an excellent credit score. Continue to save by yourself. And one advice I got was ×3 on the capital. Know what you really need and multiply it by 3. Okay? Because you can always find ways to add the extra money. You'll do more marketing, or you will do more hiring, right? You'll do more software and technology. And so first know what you need, and what I'm finding is that the business cases have missing gaps. Like one of the big missing gaps is, of course, security. If you're going to lease a building, buy a building, have a line item, more than 0, please, for security. And a business coach, and dollars for local marketing, or wherever you're marketing for ideal clients. So these were some gaps that I found in standard performers that I would advise to you. So my advice on the capital and the funding is use the time. There are many bankers here. After the fact, you can go learn what are all the different funding available. Angel investing is available. There are investors who are willing to invest in you. Your customers may be willing to invest in you. And you may also have crowdfunding capabilities, right? So these are so many new ways of funding your business and capital. I urge everyone who wants to start a business, spend time to understand the different ways of capital available before you start your business. Then build a relationship with the bankers, the people who believe in you, who want to invest in you, and keep them updated along the way. Hey, we just got our second van. Hey, we got this big client for $300K. We executed this. We got the State of Georgia award for the Small Business of the Year, right? They're so happy. They're so excited to see our success. And my initial banker from our bank, she moved jobs, but their facility called us because she's so proud of us and our achievement. And when she took a new job, she remembered us, and she called us to come do it. So there's capital available. You need to know how to get it. But before all of that, you need to have a solid business case. And you also need to save enough money or have it in your business case to have personal income for 1 year. So if you remove your personal family, mortgage, rent, food, school's education as a threat to your business, you have 1 year of savings for your personal income. You have 6 to 12 months of savings for your cash flow for your business or capital. Then you're in a great position to not worry about every night, how will I make payroll? How will I make my mortgage or my rent or feed my children? Right? So those nobody is telling you when you go to apply for capital. So I urge you to think of your personal income, because as a founder, we didn't take income, but if I have to replace myself, I have to pay them fantastic market rates, right, to get the best team possible. Only a founder would work for $0, by the way, right? No employee will come and work for $0. So I urge you to do those. Those are all some suggestions that I have learned the hard way, and I want you to use these so you can be way more successful. Thank you.
I think it's so interesting, before I pass it to both of you, that when you have a job and you have income, you're thinking about managing your income, investing, and paying your responsible, expenses. But when you're an entrepreneur, you have to now start planning, and there's some sort of financial literacy that I think we don't get any training on. And so I think I really love that you're walking us through, and I'm hoping you will do the same. So how about you, Sanji? Or maybe, why don't you go for it? Yes.
Okay. Okay, this reminds me of an old country music song. I really just thought about this, and it goes something like this. I got to think, mama for the cooking, daddy for the whooping, and the bank for the money, or something like that. When I first started my first business, and I'll talk about the second one in a second, but when I first started Southern Proper, I just used seed money and small capital loan from my family and my savings. So that's how I was able to just kind of start that slow growth and growing it. And it wasn't that much of a financial risk for me at the time, even though it was, because using your savings is not always the best thing, but it ended up fine. But then after a few years of really building a base and building the business, I was able to really, again, use my network, use relationships, and I found a great bank in Buckhead here in Atlanta that really just said, you know what, we're going to invest in you. And they really helped me scale that business at the time when we were growing and really needed that capital, because we were a very capital-intense business because of the product. It wasn't a service. We were having to buy things from overseas in different countries and make that risk and make that investment before we were even selling the goods. So having a great banking relationship was really key early on, and finding a smaller bank that believed in business, that wanted to see kind of small businesses grow and invest in. So that was a big thing. Now, as I progressed and the need for capital got bigger, I went down, I got a private investor. But I made a mistake. And I want to share that because I certainly learned from it and have moved forward from that. But I gave away a lot of the control and the interest in the business. And You know, I did it because I thought, gosh, I see the potential long term. I know how we're going to build this and how we can grow it. And giving up that control really, really, really impacted the business, because that business was my baby. And think about raising a child or, you know, starting something from scratch. I mean, no one knows it like you do. And so I think kind of turning over some of that control over to the private investor and having that, that was a tough lesson to learn. Now, fast forward to where we are with Honored Reserve today. We are in control of our own destiny. We are, you know, self-funding. We, you know, had some small investments in the very beginning, but we've built great banking relationships. We have terrific, we've actually just got an SBA loan to buy and purchase one of the stores, the real estate for one of our stores in Florida. So, you know, using those resources, but keeping that control within the business is really important, so.
And I'll just piggyback on to say that Incisive is a services company, so we're not capital intensive, but still, in order to launch the business, Chris, when he first launched it, put some money in, and I did the same. But this goes to the first question about risk and why I said that probably earlier in my career, I wouldn't have been as comfortable doing that. So, you know, you want to be careful. You don't want to be taking out your whole 401k or mortgaging your house, which is what many people do to start a business. So finding that right personal balance, and I do think that having, you know, enough savings where you will be okay and able to take care of yourself is really, really important. The second thing, everybody said it, that is key, is having a great relationship with your banker. So any small business, particularly one that's starting up, cash flow is like kind of the bane of your existence. So I have learned the hard way that, you know, an invoice may be due on the day that it's due, but that doesn't mean that the client is paying. And we all know, like in the case of Amazon, many companies have been phenomenally successful in not actually paying their vendors or you know, increasing their own cash flow by paying later. So sometimes as a service, a small service business, we're, you know, kind of on the end of that, and Chris is running to the post office to check to see if, you know, the checks are in the mail. So having a great banking relationship where you have a line of credit or access to capital to get you through, you know, those cash flow moments is really, really critical. And the other thing that we learned is that while you're out there and you're getting new business and you're doing wonderful things for your clients and you're out serving the community, you need help. And so one of the investments that we made in year 2, I kind of talked about our year 1, year 2, and now year 3 ramp up, was we went ahead and really kind of upgraded in terms of getting a top-notch accountant. It's a firm that we trust, that we can work with, because we just, you know, we're on top of the finances and we meet on it regularly. But there are just certain things where we know that we're going to need help and we need someone that we can trust. So that's also, I think, a really critical piece of running a business, realizing that you can't do everything and get help in the places where you do, particularly around finances.
I just want to add one item over there to thank you. It was a phenomenal point she made on the AR, accounts receivable. The little known secret in the industry that nobody taught me, that please be aware, large companies expect small businesses to extend credit to them for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, sometimes 120 plus days. So this industry is completely lopsided. In fact, a large company should extend credit to a small business and say, I will pay you on the spot for all the work you have done today, right? But it's completely opposite. So be aware of that a large company will ask you to do all the business and then it'll say, oh, by the way, send me your W-9, your COI, send me all your vendor paperwork, go to my procurement, do all that stuff, right? And then, oh, by the way, I'll pay you in 60 days or 90 days. And you're like, whoa, I already finished my services. So be careful. Know the secret that nobody is sharing. And ask ahead of time and tell them, you have told them that they're going to pay, that they need to pay immediately, but they just assume they don't need to, and you're going to have the credit, which is so interesting in our industry. And as the small business development advisor for the state of Georgia, I've been working very hard to change this for all small businesses in the state of Georgia. So if you're a large business or a large corporation, my ask to you today, pay your vendor today
Yes.
for
yes.
this service.
The buzz out there, I have just learned this, but yes, 100% is that the big corporates are actually, and we love y'all, so, no offense, but that the big corporates are actually the very worst at paying the small businesses. So that's one of the things that we have to navigate.
And I think it's interesting that I think feels like small business owners are small, their voice is small, and in good faith to extend business and opportunity, you end up in a more compromised position. So I really appreciate that upfront discussions. We in our contract had that 60-day, and then I just looked at my books and say, no, 30 days. And then in preparation for 30-day deadline, you start sending your invoices, reminders every week. And of course, it's hard work. I think you think doing the work itself is going to lead to results, financial rewards, but the whole logistics of receiving the money itself is a business by itself, so be prepared. So with that, I think, what suggestions do you have or advice you have for women seeking investors in Georgia? I think this is Georgia. One of the things I love about Georgia is we are so pro-business, and look at this event. Thank you for Chamber for making this happen, and I really think that there's a great opportunity. So how do you see navigating that terrain? Maybe I'll throw it back to you.
Oh,
Yeah?
sure.
Emmy?
Well, I think one piece of advice just in general, and I think this does help with the finance side, is just to ask. Sometimes I think that's one thing I've learned of just asking, do you know someone? Is there someone you could introduce me to for this or that? And then the second thing I'll say is the SBA, that has been a blessing for us, to start buying some of our own real estate and again, like I said, controlling our own destiny for growing our business, and getting those SBA loans have been truly impactful. So
It's brilliant.
This is where I think entrepreneurship is similar to whether or not you're working for an agency or a big corporate, or to a lot of the advice that our earlier speakers gave us. It's relationship building. So at events like this, talking to folks who are interested in small business support, but building that network and making sure, that people know what you're doing. So a little plug for making sure that another thing that you have to do as an entrepreneur, even if you own your own marketing and branding agency, is still market and brand and communicate about what you're doing. So you've also got to be out there handing out the business cards, finding people on LinkedIn. So when the time comes when you're ready to have those kind of conversations with investors, or possibly you've scaled enough that you're ready to start actually thinking about, maybe a merger or selling, that you have people who know who you are, that respect you, that trust you, and you can have a legitimate conversation from day one.
So Launch Fayette is an initiative here in Fayette County. It's an incubator. I strongly recommend everyone. It's like my dream come true. Many years ago, we didn't have these resources. There are many incubators in the rest of the areas. I recommend that you go attend some of their classes. Many of the banks are running classes now on entrepreneurship, business cases. SCORE and SBDC have online classes and in-person classes where they talk about access to capital, how to go about it. And the SBA, the Small Business Administration, their website has classes. I urge you to strongly first gain more knowledge on what is capital, how do you get it, what are the different types of capital, what are the pros and cons, right? How do you go have a great credit? Because they ask you for collateral. Are you going to put your home as a collateral? Or are you going to give your life insurance cash value as a collateral? Or do you have cash that they're going to hold now? And I'm going, wait a minute, I need the cash to run my business. How can I give you my cash as collateral, right? These are all things you have to learn ahead of time, which will help you. So if you're sitting on the fence going, I have 100 ideas, which one do I do for a business? First, spend the time 1 to 2 years learning all this. It's well worth it because it'll prevent so many headaches for you when you're running your business later. And Georgia is phenomenal for running a business. We are in the best state in the country for running a business. It's very, very, very business friendly.
Lovely, thank you. And I think one point I'm going to piggyback what Emmy said, that I think to ask, you need to be bold, and I think making connections and networking, I mean, I hate the word networking because it sounds like you have some sort of hidden agenda, but making connections, and really I highly encourage business adjacent. So don't think that your biggest investors are going to come from a place who know your work, your business, your ideas. It could be somebody completely unfamiliar to your work, but they see your passion, they see value, and they are willing to be able to partner or see and recommend in the future for what you're doing and open doors for you. So again, we talk about entrepreneurship, and the path is not rosy. There are ample obstacles. So one of the questions, if you're bold and brave enough to share, maybe what was your biggest setback and what did you learn from it? And maybe you got a little glimpse into your own resilience. So if you share that, because that also will be very encouraging to everybody here. Who wants to start? Sanji?
Okay, I have to think about that for a second. You know, I think what's really hard is if we lose a client. And I knew going into this that we have a certain philosophy and a way that we work, and we have such pride and passion for the work that we do that I wake up in the morning and I kind of want to do it for everybody that I'm working with. But one of the things that you'll learn in business is that not everybody is actually the right fit. And when that happens, you know, being able to take pride in the work that we did do successfully and just realize that this, you know, we have a different philosophical approach can be hard. So I think that has been something that I've had to learn to not take as a setback. The flip side of that, and we actually had a really amazing experience with a client, is that often our clients will come to us and they will ask for something, but it's not actually what they need. And so there's a little bit of a joy in that because you're trying to establish trust with this new client, and they've said we want X, Y, Z in the RFP or whatever they put out, and we get in there, and after 2 or 3 months, we're like, oh, no, no, no. We've done our discovery. We've done our whole process. This is absolutely this is just wrong. And so going to that client and saying, hey, you have hired us because of our expertise and because of the knowledge that we bring, this is what we recommend. And either they take it or they don't. But we had an amazing experience where a client did, and we were completely able to, you know, kind of reset their course. They signed up, you know, for us to be their agency of record, and it's been one of our greatest success stories in the time that we've worked together. So in the short time that, you know, I've been on this journey, I've seen sort of both sides. Client relationships where, you know, we just weren't the match made in heaven that we thought we would be, and relationships where we've been able to really see the client take off, and then we've been able to kind of execute and give the strategy that we want to, and that's what makes it really joyful. So kind of balancing those high lows, I think is, you know, something that can be challenging, but it's also rewarding.
And letting go a partnership that potentially is not going anywhere. So much wisdom there. Thank you. You want to take?
Yeah, sure. So if I think about the last 5 or 6 years, and I think about setbacks, I think that there's a common theme because I think about COVID being one of them, and we had retail stores that were closed for months and months and things like that, and what we did to make it through that as a small business. And then, too, the tariff situation that has been going on that really impacts our business. But I think the common thing through both of them is that the approach we took to those challenges. And it was that we said, you know what? We believe in what we're doing. We're not going to stop. We kept going into the office or working from home. We kept ordering that product from overseas. We brought it in. We didn't back off of our purchases and buys during COVID, even though we didn't know what the world was going to do. But we knew that we had faith and hope that it was going to open back up. And boy, were we glad we did. We saw one of our biggest years of growth. And, you know, we were able to navigate making sure we protected our people first, which was a key part of a small business is, you know, you have some great people that are along this journey for you and they're ambassadors for you. And so, you know, TJ, our founder and I, we just said, look, we won't take a salary. We're going to pay our people. We're going to keep our store managers. We're going to keep moving and pressing on. And then the same with the tariffs. We kind of took the same approach with those, even though that really impacts us. We source from all over the world. And, you know, it was a different rule every day, and we're trying to navigate it. But because of our strong relationships and relationships that, you know, my team and I had built over the last, you know, 15, 20 years with sourcing partners, you know, they were able to help us navigate this. They took some of the burden, we shared some of the burden, so we were able to really come out on top, and our margins even grew last year, which was incredible from a profit standpoint. So I think just staying the course, not backing down, not giving up. I think it's hard, and that is one of the hardest things as a small business owner, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, if you can't, you know, pay your bills or you know, hit your goals, then you're not making money, right? So I think just really prioritizing the people and not backing down, I think was a huge win.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
I would say never expected this as a major setback. I'm an engineer myself, electronics and telecommunication with a master's in computer science. My husband has an engineering and an MBA. We have hired people our entire career. But a big setback in this industry, in the security industry, there are very few talented security professionals. The schools, trade schools, do not produce commercial locksmiths. They produce HVAC, carpentry, many other trades, but not locksmithing. And in the cameras, security cameras, access controls world, there's no trade schools, no colleges, none of them are educating. Therefore, first finding the talent, finding the great talent, then training them and keeping them has been a major setback. And we have overcome that to a large extent, but the industry itself has this problem because the education system doesn't have that. So this was a big discovery after we started the business. And then losing a member on a small business as a family member who had almost become like a family member, when he passed away to unexpected pancreatic cancer, it was a big personal setback. The business still continued. We were able to take care of the clients, but personally, emotionally, the attachment we had to the person became a big setback. We had to overcome that. And of course, COVID. But COVID went back to the mission, which is save lives. So at that time, we just saved lives. We didn't care about revenue, profit. Well, like people were dying in front of us. They were in the hospital, right? So things were happening that we didn't understand before the country shut down. And we just focused on people, keeping them safe, keeping them healthy, keeping them alive, and that really helped. And later we got many awards recognizing the community work we did, but we did the work because it went back to our mission, not because we were going to have revenue or profit or the lack of it, right? So this, if you remember your mission, why you do something, you will be able to get through a resilient time, but sometimes you also need to know when to walk away from it. You know, fail fast. It's okay to fail fast. It's okay to fail because your success criteria is yours, not mine, not hers, not somebody else's. How did you define success for this endeavor? And when are you going to call it quits? You need to know that very clearly, and if you know that, you can be very resilient. It takes, some days you wake up and go, why do I do this? Let me just go take an executive job and make lots of money and business, health insurance and all the benefits. And then you go, yeah, okay, I do this because of this. Let me do this, right? So medical insurance was another big setback. It still continues to be a setback for small businesses. I'm so glad there's a Smart Chamber plan. But access to...
Shout out to the Small Chamber
Yes,
plan.
thank you.
Thank you very
so
much, Georgia Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Chamber, for resolving that. So be aware of these setbacks and how to overcome them.
Well, thank you. We are wrapping up this session. As you can see why this conversation is so important, and we have this brilliant, amazing women leaders who are setting the stage for taking the risk and forging the path forward. I'm not sure if you can do this in one quick sentence as I'm watching the clock, but you're very young, you're not in your 80s, so this question is a little bit moot, but we'll go for it. Is what legacy you hope to leave through this adventure of entrepreneurship? I'll start with you, Emmy. Very quick and...
Yep. People are your greatest asset, so don't forget that I brought my legacy with me today, some of the top young leaders in our business, and they're all women. So just wanted to say thank you.
I would say to make a lasting impact in some way on the Atlanta community. It's a founding value of Incisive. We are headquartered here, even though we serve clients all over the place and internationally, but we care so deeply about this community that I think at the end of the day, we want to see that we've made an impact that really matters in a significant way.
For us, it's safer and secure communities. We want every single one of you to be alive, safe, focus on your dreams, while you, your teams, your homes, your families are safer. So we are building safer communities, one client at a time, one job at a time. And we are very proud of it, and we wish for you to stay healthy and safe in your business environment every day. That's the legacy we want to leave in this business.
Thank you. And I will end with my personal wish and dream is to have every child in Georgia learn how to learn. And if I can contribute to that journey through the work that I'm doing, I'll be eternally grateful. Once again, please join me in thanking this amazing panel. Thank you, Georgia Chamber, Tasha Allen, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.